The following is a sports presentation of the University of Nebraska's radio station, your home for continuous coverage of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. 90.3 KRNU, Lincoln, Nebraska.
For Husker Countdown, I'm Ryan Swanigan. It's time to wake up. Everything you thought was important before now means nothing. Why? Because it's now time for conference play in the Big Ten. The first matchup, the Fighting Illini. We've seen the Huskers falter and shine early on in the first 4 games, but now is the time to do what everyone in Husker Nation expects, not just of Bo Pelini, but of the players. 110% effort on the field and awareness of what's going on. Illinois is no Southern Miss, but they are also not UCLA or an Alabama. But in the end, it's time for all of us to wake up for Big Ten play, which, one may add, has brought about some amazing come-from-behind wins the past 2 years. And in year 3, the same winning mindset is on hand for Nebraska. It's time to wake up, because everything is on the line for the Big Red in the Legends division. It's time to wake up, because Husker football just got a little bit more real. It's time to wake up, because this is Husker Countdown.
O'Brien takes the snap, going to hand off the ball, and he's going to be hit in the backfield and taken down. There's actually a fumble on the play, and Nebraska recovers. That's Harvey Jackson on the recovery, and the Huskers should get out of this one with a win.
Martinez takes a handoff, gives it up to Amani Cross up the middle, and touchdown Nebraska. They will push this to a 1-point game and a tie game pending a PAT from Brent Maher. Oh my, how things can change so quickly.
Martinez staying in the shotgun, 3 wide receivers to his right. He gets the snap, steps back, looking downfield. He's got a man deep. He's throwing to Kenny Bell. It's wide open at the 10. Makes a catch, 5-4, dives for the end zone. Touchdown, Nebraska! Huge play from Martinez to Kenny Bell. 32-yard pass, and Nebraska takes the lead with 13-17 left.
Now, live from the top floor of the press box at Memorial Stadium, with all the game day coverage you need to get ready for Nebraska Cornhusker football. 90.3 KRNU is proud to present Husker Countdown.
We bid you a good morning here from a chilly Lincoln, Nebraska. It's game 5 of the 5-game homestand for the Huskers. 3 more home games to go after today, but for now, Illinois is in town, and alongside Brent, BonFleur, and Marc, Zach, I am Ryan Swanigan, and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, up here in the press box with the sun shining at us with the cold wind, the combo makes it rather comfortable. I'm probably going to be switching on and off with my coat here today.
You know, it's not bad up here right now, temperature-wise, and it's going to get warmer throughout the day, but it will be the coldest game of the year so far, and I think we're just going to have to get used to this kind of weather now. We were spoiled earlier on, but right now a little chilly, but still kind of sweater weather right now.
Yeah, maybe preferable to the 96 and 97 degree games we had where we were up here sweating, but you know, it's a nice, comfortable day, great day for Husker football.
You know it's hot when I don't put on the suit jacket, so
Yeah,
that was the beginning of this season. Well, gentlemen, it's been a little while since we've been here, not too terribly long. A bye week last week for Nebraska. Marc, Zach, I ask you, what's the significance of the bye week?
Practice, and that's huge because there was a lot of rumbling after that South Dakota State game, and the defense was not up to par according to the coaches, and so they got an extra week to practice and to put new ideas in and have these young defenders get some new repetitions and just get better on the field. And so today's going to be a big day just to see how good these young defenders are and how much they can improve in a bye week and how confident these coaches are going to be in these young defenders.
Marc, I move on to asking you about what are the good and the bad aspects of the bye week here?
There's a lot of good. You can, well, most of your players can recover from injury. Of course, Taylor still out with that turf toe injury, so but he's farther along than he was 2 weeks ago, and so it gives you an extra week to recover from injury, rest up, fix your bumps and bruises, gives you an extra week to practice on the field just to catch your breath, because 5 weeks in a row is a lot to ask for players. Gets you an extra day off here and there. The bad of it is you don't get game repetition, and so you don't get there is a difference between practicing against your second team on the field and playing against an actual team on the field, and so you don't get a chance to prove yourself or quiet down a lot of the people talking about you, and so you've got an extra week of hearing all the comments about what you did wrong against South Dakota State. And so that's kind of the good and bad of having a bye week.
Brent, start of Big Ten play today, obviously for Nebraska. How important do these games become now?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, obviously you want to win all your games, and you know the Huskers can do that with their non-conference schedule. But now these are the games that really matter. These are the games that are going to determine where they finish in the Big Ten, if they go to the Big Ten championship game. And especially, you know, you look at the two divisions in the Big Ten, and the leaders division has, you know, kind of Ohio State, and you know they're going to win their division unless something, you know, miraculous happens. They have Wisconsin and Penn State, but the Legends division where Nebraska plays is a lot deeper, a lot more, you know, equal in the talent maybe of the teams. And so, you know, you have to win every game, even if it's against lesser opponents. You can't afford to, you know, lose one, because you may lose later on to some of these tougher teams like, you know, Michigan or Michigan State.
I ask you now, what did we learn looking back at non-conference play from the UCLA game to South Dakota State and Wyoming and Southern Miss? What did we learn from those games?
You know, I wish I could tell you something really, you know, profound, but a lot of those games we didn't learn a lot, except maybe that the Husker defense is not really where it needs to be. You know, blowout win against, you know, Southern Miss team, that doesn't really tell you much. Same with South Dakota State. Obviously, the common denominator is that the defense has been carved up in just about every game so far. You know, I don't know what you can take away from the UCLA game. Maybe that they weren't mentally prepared as much for that game. So not a whole lot from the games they played so far, but we'll find out today and going on in the rest of the season.
Marc, another morning game, could be more in addition to the Iowa game that's coming up the day after Thanksgiving. Are these morning games a good or a bad thing for Nebraska? The last morning game we had, Nebraska came out strong, second half got shut out, and UCLA pulled away with really what you could say is technically was the upset win here. Are these morning games good or bad here?
I think you get a little bit more of a home field advantage maybe in the morning game, because you are already comfortable in your zone and you're not getting up earlier in the morning and having to acclimate to the climate and the atmosphere here. So an Illinois team coming in or a UCLA team coming in, especially from different time zones. Illinois, of course, is still Central Time Zone, but like UCLA coming in from the Pacific Time Zone, you know, they're not acclimated to the time adjustment as well, and so they didn't get off to as fast a start as maybe they wanted to, and so as a visiting team, you've got to work a little bit harder just to get ready for these morning games, I think, than a home team. But other than that, I don't really see much of a difference. The good thing about having a early game is, as a player, you're not sitting around all day waiting for 7 o'clock kickoff and getting antsy and using up your energy, and this is, you know, kind of the peak of your day, and so you get probably better performance out of your players in morning games actually than you would at primetime games.
Right, and if I may add, you know, football players are creatures of habit. They're up all the time, early mornings in the weight room, early practices. It's not a huge deal for these guys to wake up early and, you know, go out and perform, you know, in a physical game like football. These guys do it all the time.
Getting to the aspects of today's game as we kind of start here with Taylor Martinez out again, Tommy Armstrong in. Brent, what is the significance for this now that we're in conference play, first game against Illinois, a much better team than South Dakota State? What's the significance that lies here?
I don't think there's as much of a significance in the actual, you know, physical abilities of the two. Obviously, Armstrong looked impressive. So did Ron Kellogg. But, you know, the players have said that, Armstrong can throw probably the furthest on the team. He's, I'm not going to say he's Taylor Martinez. Obviously, Martinez has one of the best quarterback careers in college football history. But, it's certainly not a huge drop-off like a lot of teams have when you have someone so good and then you have to go to a backup. I think the main significance and difference is going to be, the leadership stuff. Is he as much of a, quote, field general as Taylor Martinez is maybe? I don't know. You might look to see if, the rhythm with the receivers isn't as sharp maybe as it is with Taylor, who, they're used to catching the balls from him. But, as far as a ability standpoint, I don't think there's any drop-off really.
Marc, getting to after this game, I know this is kind of not exactly a situation, that you really want to speculate of what could happen in a game. But if Tommy Armstrong does do extremely well or just shines in general in this game, what comes from that? What are the consequences or benefits, or what do we see?
Nothing. Pat on the back, good job, thank you. Taylor's back when he's healthy. There is not a chance of there being a quarterback controversy here at Nebraska for a couple reasons. First of all, Bo Pelini, though he does have his faults, the one thing you can credit him for is he is loyal to a fault to his players. Maybe one of the most loyal coaches in the country to his players, and you see that evidenced by South Dakota State, where Tommy Armstrong shared snaps with Ron Kellogg, and possibly today will share snaps with Ron Kellogg. You don't need to give Ron Kellogg snaps. He's a senior. He's not going to be the future of your team. Tommy Armstrong will be the future of your team, but Bo gives him snaps because of his loyalty to Ron and his appreciation for what Ron has done for him these past few years. So Bo's going to be loyal to Taylor no matter what. Once he's 100% healthy, he's in. The other thing is, I know a lot of people are hyped up on Tommy Armstrong, and he did have a great game against South Dakota State, but the one thing that he's not exactly ready for is those quick decisions. He did not make the best decisions when he was out there against South Dakota State, and a lot of that is evidenced by looking at the injury report after the game. You had 3 wide receivers banged up pretty bad, and that's because Tommy Armstrong is not looking off those safeties and those cornerbacks as well as he could be, or as well as Taylor does right now, and he's thrown to these receivers across the middle, and they're making great plays, great catches, and they're getting 10 yards at a time at that, but you're sacrificing some big hits on your wide receivers too. And so Tommy needs to learn the game a little bit more before he's ready to step up and take the starting position, and I think that will be next year. Tommy will be the starting guy and the go-to guy, and I think he'll learn quite a bit from the rest of this year and the offseason and next year. But for this year, this is Taylor Martinez's team. Once he's 100% healthy, he's back in the game.
He's Marc Zach, Brent BonFleur also with us. I'm Ryan Swanigan, and we will take a break and come back. And when we do, we will preview the Illinois Fighting Illini coming over from Champaign and talk about what they present here for this matchup. Coming up next here on 90.3 KRNU, you are listening to Husker Countdown.
Stick around. More pregame coverage is next on the University of Nebraska's radio station, 90.3 KRNU.
If you're in the market for a new pet, then Capital Humane Society is the place for you. With plenty of cats and dogs waiting to be adopted, you are bound to find one that you like. Open 7 days a week, you can come in and find a pet that is right for you. Capital Humane Society also allows people to volunteer for them. If you or someone you know is interested in adopting or volunteering, call Capital Humane Society at 441-4488 or visit their website at capitalhumanesociety.org.
Now, back out to Memorial Stadium for more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
Welcome back to Memorial Stadium. Ryan Swanigan, Marc Zach, and Brent BonFleur. Quickly, Marc or Brent, I wanted to ask either one of you about this wind. This wind is probably going to, it will be a factor today, and I guess we'll talk about that more with special teams. But quick thoughts on how the wind will factor into this game, not just kicking the football, but maybe also throwing it too.
Well, I know in kicking, at least on Nebraska's side, Mauro Bondi's got a leg on him. So if he's kicking with the wind, I doubt you see any kick returns. And if he's kicking into it, maybe doesn't affect him as much because he has such a powerful leg. Maybe you can get it, maybe not in for a touchback, but at least, drive it a little bit deeper. As for the passing game, Tommy Armstrong, he's got a strong arm.
Yeah.
Ironic there. But, we'll see how that affects them. Obviously depends which direction you're going if this wind picks up. These players are, they know what the weather's going to be like. They know they're going to have to overcompensate. And, you may see it in effect. Inaccurate passes that maybe would be incomplete might be picked off if they're, underthrown maybe. So it's definitely a factor, but we'll see how they handle it.
Moving on to the Illinois Fighting Illini here, some of the numbers here, -1 in the turnover margin, 10 sacks allowed, 4 sacks on defense. And Mark, we get into talking about Nate Shieldhouse, quarterback, senior quarterback for the Illini, facing the Nebraska secondary. How does he succeed against them today?
Well, I think Shieldhouse is one of those quarterbacks that is nimble. He is able to escape pressure very easily and able to let plays develop, and that's what constitutes his success. You look at Illinois this year compared to last year, and I mean, even looking at Illinois' program, right on the front page is highlighting their improvement from last year this year in offense. And I mean, you could just see right now how much of an effect Shieldhouse has had on this offensive team, and it has grown since last year. And that's because he's gained arm strength, but he's also gained that agility to avoid pressure. Illinois gave up a lot of sacks last year. Their offensive line was not as good as they are right now, but they are a lot better this year. And so Illinois can keep Shieldhouse vertical, and that keeps Shieldhouse in the game, getting his receivers opening and making those big plays.
Brent, the two running backs for for Illinois, you look at them, and I mean, Donovan Young with only 208 total yards. That's basically 2 games for a guy like Amir Abdullah,
right.
Essentially. And this is over the course of 4 games already for Illinois, or three or four, I believe. 4 games. 4 games for Illinois to this point, and only 208 yards, and that's their leading rusher. I mean, how do they succeed against that Nebraska defensive line here today?
Well, don't let the stat sheet fool you necessarily. You mentioned Young, maybe their leading rusher, but they've got other guys who get involved, not necessarily at the running back position. Ryan Langford, I know, has quite a few yards. He's kind of a dual threat guy. Josh Ferguson, he's a guy to look out for, just a sophomore, but he can run. And even Aaron Bailey, who's listed as their 3rd string quarterback for Illinois, they use him in a lot of different situations. So, they've got some weapons. Don't let the stat sheet fool you.
And Illinois' offense is set up not to feature a primary running back necessarily, because, Donovan Young is the leading rusher right now, 208 yards, but right behind him, Josh Ferguson, the other running back on the team, he's up to like 198 yards this year. So splitting the duties, I mean, they have a solid rushing game, and they've actually improved yards per game from last year. They were only running the ball 127 yards per game. Right now this year, it's 171 yards per game. Add that to the potent passing offense that they have with Shieldhouse and the receivers, and it's a formidable offense.
Moving on to the 3 solid options as far as wide receivers go for Nate Shieldhouse. One out of the backfield, and we've already talked quite a bit about Josh Ferguson already, but what's the significance there for Illinois and for Shieldhouse, Mark, to utilize those 2 receivers, the 3 options really for receivers?
Well, it's a very pro-style offense is what it is. And so Illinois, they have that big playability, but what they're looking for is to check down receivers. And so guys like Josh Ferguson, who lines up in the backfield, often get the ball in space on those screens and on those out routes and can make room. And so Illinois really likes to pull offensive linemen and move them out into space and give their running backs and backfield blockers when they throw the ball, and that has produced a lot of big plays for Illinois as well.
Brent, moving to the Illinois defense, we've heard a lot of stories, and we've seen them this year. They're not the best defense, but two linebackers really at the top of the tackling game for the Fighting Illini. Can they cause trouble for Tommy Armstrong in this Husker offense?
Oh, of course they can. You know, you look at the guys that got senior Jonathan Brown, TJ Neal is just a redshirt freshman, but you might see him some. You know, obviously Amir Abdullah, these guys are some bigger linebackers, over 230 pounds, some of them, and obviously matched up against a guy like Amir Abdullah, you might see him be able to, you know, use that speed and cutting ability maybe to get away. I'm not saying these guys are slow. These are all, you know, stud athletes, but, you know, I think it won't be as big of a problem with the type of backs that Nebraska has. And obviously when you hand the ball out to Imani Cross, I don't care how big the guy lined up across from him is, he's gonna lower the boom.
Jonathan Brown has 47 total tackles on the season. Mason Monheim with 38. The next closest defensive back with anywhere close to that number of tackles is Ernest Thomas III, ET3, if I may add, 28 total tackles for the defensive back for Illinois. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Nebraska now and move to the offensive side of the ball. But before we do, Hunter Cave gives us a more in-depth look at the Illinois starting quarterback today, the senior Nate Scheelhaase. That's coming up next here on Husker Countdown on 90.3 KRNU.
Stay tuned. Husker Countdown continues next, only on 90.3 KRNU.
Whether college graduation is in a few months or in a few years, gaining hands-on experience in your field of interest is a must. While a college degree is a fruitful step towards acquiring a top-tier career, today's employers are looking for college grads that already have some experience under their belt. Here at Husker HireLink, we're here to ensure that you're the person they're looking for. By simply uploading your current resume and skills, we can connect you with hundreds of employers seeking to hire college students to fill their intern, part-time, and full-time positions. Log on to HuskerHireLink.com today to get started.
Now, back out to Memorial Stadium for more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
For Husker Football Countdown, I'm Hunter Cave. If ever there has been a kryptonite to the black shirt defense, it would be dual threat quarterbacks. This weekend against Illinois, the Cornhuskers will find themselves matched up against yet another multifaceted field general. However, this particular running signal caller is one the Huskers know plenty about, without even seeing him on the field. Nate Scheelhaase was recruited heavily by Nebraska, but opted to take his talents to Champaign when the Huskers signed another highly touted dual-threat quarterback, Taylor Martinez. Before the signing of Martinez, Scheelhaase spent plenty of time in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, I visited Nebraska a few times, probably as much as any other school besides Illinois. They're pretty close to Kansas City, about 3 hours outside of Kansas City. They originally recruited me under Coach Callahan, and still recruited me when Coach Pelini came in. Went to a game there when they played number 1 USC at the time. Went to a spring game there, a sold-out spring game there. So been around that stadium a couple times, and obviously excited for the next visit.
Nebraska coach Bo Pelini speaks highly of the 4-year starter that the Huskers missed out on picking up years ago.
We thought he was a really good player. I mean, when we recruited him, we thought he was a good football player that could do a lot of things that would fit our, kind of the style of offense that we were going to start moving towards. And I think it's the way it's played out. He's a good player.
Despite developing into a high-level dual-threat quarterback, Scheelhaase wasn't initially recruited as one. Scheelhaase was in a limbo for the first part of his career.
It's one of those things that your perspective on how things are going to all work out definitely changed. I can remember being recruited and initially being recruited just as an athlete, and then kind of moving into a dual-threat quarterback that will kind of be expected to really do a lot of running, and kind of do that in my first few years here.
As Scheelhaase has grown, Pelini has followed him closely. His athleticism and football IQ are certainly on par with some of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Now the high school standout from Kansas City has become what could turn into a nightmare for the Husker defense.
I think he's a good player. I think he plays within their offense. I think he understands where to go with the football in the throwing game, and obviously he's capable of hurting you with his feet. He's a good football player. He can do a lot of different things well.
Whoever lines up under center, Avery Moss and the rest of the Black Shirts are confident that they have what it takes to shut down Shieldhouse and the rest of the Illini offense.
The quarterback's he's good. I like the way he plays. I think he's deceptively fast. I think he doesn't run the ball a lot, but he's really quick. They have a pretty good running back, and I think our D-line can be able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
For Husker Football Countdown, I'm Hunter Cave.
More Husker Countdown is coming up on your home for Nebraska football, 90.3 KRNU.
Make-A-Wish Nebraska is celebrating their 30th anniversary. Since 1983, children with life-threatening medical conditions have had their wishes granted by Make-A-Wish Nebraska. Every year, more and more children qualify for the program, and you can make a difference. Change a child's life today by making a personal donation, setting up an online fundraiser, or becoming a volunteer. Help celebrate the giving of hope and making dreams come true for these children. For more information, visit nebraska.wish.org.
Now, back out to Memorial Stadium for more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
Welcome back to Lincoln. Ryan Swanigan, Marc, Zach, and Brent BonFleur here as the Fighting Illini have taken the field officially, and they are getting their warm-ups underway here as we move to talking about the Nebraska offense. We already mentioned Tommy Armstrong starting today, so Brent, I ask you, what does T. Armstrong need to do to ensure repeat success in this one against the Illini?
Play smart, Ryan, and you heard Marc say it earlier in the last game. He didn't maybe make all the best decisions, and he still played very well, not taking anything away from him. And, you know, you want to look to see if maybe the pressure to repeat doesn't get to him a little bit. Maybe, you know, just so that he knows he doesn't have to get that home run ball. You know, he doesn't have to light up the scoreboard. A 3-and-out is not the worst thing. Look for the open receiver, make the right choice. You know, the coaches will give him the plays to succeed, and he just needs to go out and execute, not worry about it.
Marc, we've been talking a lot about Ron Kellogg, RK3. A couple of threes in this one here.
You're just big on nicknames today.
I know. You know,
right.
we've got
T. Armstrong. We've got RK3.
We got ET3 on the Illinois defensive side. We've got RK3 for Nebraska. And speaking of Ron Kellogg, how much do we see him today? And between the two, who gets more playing time?
Well, this is the question that I kind of brought up earlier this week is if Nebraska wasn't playing Illinois, if they're playing, say, an Ohio State, would you see the more experienced guy like Ron Kellogg come in and take over instead of Tommy Armstrong? And I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I think it's a good discussion to have. But I think Ron Kellogg does get his share of snaps in this game. I don't think we'll see him as much as we saw in the South Dakota State game. Like I said, for Nebraska's future, there's not a lot of point to put Kellogg in unless there needs to be that calming senior leadership presence in the huddle. But to build on Nebraska's future, Tommy Armstrong just makes the most sense to play the most snaps. But again, I still think there's that respect factor towards Ron Kellogg that he will get a few series in this game, maybe 3 or 4, I would say.
Brent, moving on to the style of the running game that was seen in South Dakota State. Do we see that same type in this one here today against Illinois?
Yeah, well, it worked. I can't remember exactly how many yards Nebraska had, but I believe it was over 300 on the ground. So, you know, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I mean, obviously this is a different team, a different defense, but, you know, these running backs, obviously they call the plays and they execute them, but when things break down, they deviate. And, you know, you don't know what you're going to see from a guy like Amir Abdullah. He may cut it all the way back across the grain and, you know, take it 50 yards for a touchdown. So, I mean, Similar style, obviously. I believe you'll see a lot of rotation with the running backs, switching it up. Obviously, in short yard situations, you might see a guy like Amani Cross. I think we'll see a little bit of newbie today in the running game, as well as maybe kick returns. So pretty similar as to the last game.
Now, Mark, you mentioned earlier, you talked about the receivers. Who gets targeted today with Tommy Armstrong at the helm?
You know, I think the go-to guy is Kenny Bell. He makes the big plays. I think Quincy Enunwa is your reliable receiver. I think Jamal Turner is probably your wild card in this game. The thing is, Illinois is going to bring out a defense that the Huskers haven't seen before, and not a lot of teams run. Illinois actually runs a 3-5 flex defense, and they actually have a couple of weird positions where they can run. They'll run 3 down linemen and 5 linebackers, but they can shift one of those linebackers called a Leo into a down lineman, and they can shift one of their cornerbacks called a star into linebacker. And so they can adjust to the play, whether they're gambling on run or pass pretty easily, or depending on what Nebraska sends out in their offensive scheme, if it's a 3-receiver set or a tight 2 tight end set. And so Nebraska's going to have to adjust for that. And it may be a little different in this first quarter just to see which of the receivers gets open going through that flex defense that Illinois runs.
Quickly here, now we have not seen the fullback for Nebraska run the ball once yet this season. We also have seen Jake Long targeted very little. Do you think that maybe those positions are utilized a little bit more today?
I think that they have their purpose in this offense right now. I don't know if you'll see them more being offensively productive, the tight end fullback position, but they set up the blocking schemes for, they're basically the flexible blocker for the running backs, for the wide receivers. And so the tight end position is a little different in Nebraska this year, where we don't have a go-to tight end like Nebraska's had so many years in the past, but you can see the future of Nebraska's tight ends coming in. Sethan Carter, the freshman's gotten some playing time, has gotten some good catches in the middle of the field as that 4th option for the quarterbacks. And so you might see a little bit of tight end play, offensively productive this game specifically. I doubt you'll see a lot of fullback productivity.
Brent, thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like Marc said, those are the guys that, they don't get any glory, but they do the dirty work. They're the guys blocking. They're the reason Amir Abdullah springs those long runs. It's because, Zimmer or, Janovich is hitting some nasty linebacker and giving him the space to run. So, there's not many fullbacks or tight ends that have huge offensive games. They don't score a lot of touchdowns. They don't get a lot of yards. But when it comes down to, a nitty-gritty short yardage or you need a catch, it's always usually the tight ends that, the quarterbacks go to as kind of like their security blanket.
We'll take another break. When we come back, Marc, Zach will talk more about the quarterbacks and the situation there with the Nebraska Cornhuskers when we come back here on Husker Countdown on 90.3 KRNU.
Stick around. More pregame coverage is next on the University of Nebraska's radio station, 90.3 KRNU.
It could be your mother. It could be your father. It could be your brother or sister, friend or neighbor. Odds are, someone you know has cancer. They may not be able to afford their medical payments either. Fortunately, that's where Students Together Against Cancer comes in. STAC's mission is to use the unique college atmosphere to assist local cancer patients that are in need, helping them pay for copays, deductibles, and more. To learn more about helping Students Together Against Cancer or how to donate, like Students Together Against Cancer on Facebook.
Now, back out to Memorial Stadium for more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
With Husker Countdown, I'm Marc Zach. Senior quarterback Taylor Martinez is still sidelined with a turf toe injury, so today freshman Tommy Armstrong will get the start for the Huskers. Senior wide receiver Quincy Enunwa believes that the team will be efficient no matter who is throwing the ball.
I don't know, when you think about it, it's tough, but when you're out there, it's not as hard as you think. I don't know, I just go out there and it's football, whoever's out there is going to take charge. We know all three of the quarterbacks know what they need to do. Nobody's out there not knowing what they're supposed to be doing, so that's a good thing. When you know you can have confidence in your guy, you know he's going to put it in the right spot.
Anunwa knows that his job is still the same: come down with the ball.
A pass is a pass. You know, when you go out there, you don't think about that kind of stuff because then it starts getting into your head. I kind of just go out there, and if the ball's in the air, it's my ball. I don't want to think, oh, no, it's this guy, it's this guy. Because a lot of times, you know, like Ron throws a ball hard or harder than the rest of them. And earlier when I was here, I kind of thought about that too much. And when you start thinking that he's going to throw it so hard, if he throws it soft, then you're unexpected, you know. So I just kind of go out there, and if the ball's there, I'm going to catch it, regardless of who's throwing it.
Senior offensive lineman Jeremiah Searles thought that Armstrong had a lot of poise this year when he was under center.
I'd say he's very mature. I wouldn't say he's beyond his years. He's still got a lot to learn, but I remember when I was that age, and you kind of fight to keep your head above water a lot. And I think since we're such a senior group up front and at the receiving core, that I think we've done a really good job of rallying around him and keeping him up, keeping him going well. I mean, whenever he had a great play, Jake Cotton was the first person running over and smacking him on the head and picking him up. And when I come off the sideline after that first drive, I picked him up. I was so excited for him because I remember my first drive as a redshirt freshman, getting out there, getting a touchdown, just felt great. And being a quarterback, I'm sure it even felt better. And so I think he's very mature for his age. He's very smooth in the backfield. You can just see it watching on film. Everything's very smooth. He seemed very calm and collective, and we all rally behind him. And if he's our starting quarterback, he's our starting quarterback. But as an offensive line, it really doesn't matter who's back there. We're going to keep him clean.
Searles agrees with Anunwa that the Huskers' offense will be the same no matter who is at quarterback.
Yeah, honestly, this last game, people have asked me this, like, what was it like when Ron was in, what was it like when Tommy was in? And honestly, I couldn't really tell you the difference. We operated very efficiently with both of those guys back there. And it felt good to operate efficiently because I feel like it's been a while since we have operated as efficiently as we have in that game. And I think that, honestly, it doesn't matter who's back there. It comes with a lot to do with us five up front operating efficiently. If we can operate up front as a unit efficiently, we'll be able to keep clean whoever's back there.
Even though Taylor Martinez will not be seen against Illinois, don't count him out. Quincy Anunwa knows that Martinez has a fighting spirit.
He hates it. He doesn't like being hurt. I talked to him the other day. But, I mean, I told him, you know, you just got to back up the team, back up the guys ahead that are playing right now. And when you come back, you can come back stronger than you were before. He's a huge competitor, so obviously this isn't one of his best times. But he's working hard, and he's going to come back strong.
Jeremiah Searles has been with Martinez for 4 years now, and Searles knows that Martinez is ready to be back on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's killing him. I mean, at this level, everyone's a huge competitor, and everyone wants to get out there and compete, and I couldn't imagine starting 32 games like he has and then being sat, and then because of things out of your control, really. I mean, injuries happen, and you can't really do much about it. And every time I see him, he's at practice, he's looking through the script, he's seeing the plays, and I think he's out there taking the mental reps that he needs, and I can definitely tell the fire's in him to get back and get that job back.
For Husker Countdown, I'm Marc Zach.
Stick around. More pregame coverage is next on the University of Nebraska's radio station, 90.3 KRNU. The Nebraska AIDS Project provides comprehensive services to all persons affected by HIV and AIDS. 1 in 4 people with HIV doesn't know their status. The Nebraska AIDS Project offers free and anonymous HIV testing services. Their office at 1120 K Street is open for testing on Wednesdays between 4 and 7 p.m. For more information, call 402-476-7000 or online at nap.org. From the press box at Memorial Stadium, here's more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
Welcome back to Lincoln. Ryan Swanigan, Marc Zach, and Brent BonFleur. Both teams are out beginning their warm-up drills, and we move to the defensive side of the Nebraska football, I guess, if you will. I don't know what I was trying to accomplish with saying that, but we move to the defensive side of the ball here for the Big Red. And Marc Zach, I'll start with you. How does this D-line stop the holes from opening up front?
They have to fill their gaps. They have to pick the right gaps, and they have to communicate. On the line, there's a big difference between A gap, B gap, C gap, and I think the defensive line so far this season has had trouble communicating who's going where.
Yeah,
and so I think communication's big.
It sounds extremely simple. Fill your gap. That's your job. But I mean, the difference between when they execute that and when they don't is huge holes, as we saw with Zach Zenner. I mean, sometimes he was getting up to the linebackers before there was even someone looking at him. He was so wide open. So
I think the big thing, though, that we saw against South Dakota State is Nebraska's coach is able to improvise on the spot there, as Nebraska, you saw about 2 minutes into that second quarter, started going to the 3-down lineman and picking one of the linemen up and rovering him, and so disguising that blitz and that gap protecting, and that really shut down South Dakota State. After that, they only had 3 points and like 42 yards after that on the ground once Nebraska started doing that. So I think maybe we'll see a lot more 3-down lineman sets for Nebraska today.
So then as we're moving from front to back here, moving to the linebackers, Brent, what is their duty for today?
I think it's pursuit, choosing their angles correctly. I've seen too many long plays where Seontae Evans is running from the opposite sideline and making a tackle, and you just can't have it. And that starts with, choosing your angle of pursuit and choosing the right one. Avery Moss talked about in his press conference this week, trusting his eyes to lead him. He called his eyes the most important part of his body because they are going to take him to where he needs to be. It's not so much that, I think Nebraska's defense matches up very well, physically probably superior. But if you don't choose the right angle, some of these speedy guys like Langford or Devon Young or Josh Ferguson, they're going to burn you.
So, Mark, how do the linebackers stop the running backs of Illinois from breaking into the secondary?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to communication, that the linebackers have to work with the defensive line on covering all gaps. And so if you've got your secondary, which is the leaders of the defense, they're the most senior group of the defense right now, still lining up the linebackers in the right spots up until the snap, you're all out of sorts, and that's what we've seen a lot of in this Nebraska defense this year. And so the Nebraska linebackers need to play above the shoulders in the head area with their brains and know what's going on and understand the scheme of what they're trying to run and then cover those gaps. Because when one linebacker blows a position or a play, that's when you get those 8, 10, 15, 70-yard runs down the middle. And so that's what Nebraska's got to stop today.
So then, Mark, I ask you, is then blitz, is that the word of is that the word of the day on defense?
A lot of people are wondering where the Nebraska blitz has gone. And really, if you look back, Nebraska's never, with this Bo Pelini defense, never really run the blitz all that much. They've always had a pretty powerful defensive line that got through back with Ndamukong Suh and Jared Crick that just looked like Nebraska blitz a lot because they were always in the backfield. But this is essentially the same defense that Nebraska's been running for the past 5 years, and there's not a lot of blitz going on. What Nebraska's defense is going to try to do more of, though, is disguise its setup and disguise who's going to fill which gaps, and it's a lot of gap-filling defense. And then you've got your secondary and the safeties. They're named that for a reason because they're the last line of defense. They're the safeties. So when one guy blows a coverage or blows an assignment like a linebacker crew, the safety's got to step up and really fill in those spots for the rest of the defense and be good teammates.
Yeah, and if I may add, fans obviously like to see a lot of blitzing. They want to see the linebackers hitting the quarterback every play, but you live or die by the blitz. If it works, it's great. You set up long third down plays. If you don't, you get burned. And so these coaches know a lot better about their personnel, what they can do. If they feel confident with the matchup, can the guy get there? Because if you send a guy on a blitz, like a corner or something, and he doesn't get there, someone's open.
Yep.
And so being blitz happy is not a good thing at all, and I think the Nebraska defense has done a good job tempering that.
We will take another break. When we come back, Brent BonFleur talks about the bye week and how it connects with this Husker defense coming into today's game against the Illinois Fighting Illini. That's coming up next here on Husker Countdown on 90.3 KRNU.
Stick around. More pregame coverage is next on the University of Nebraska's radio station, 90.3 KRNU.
This little guy, along with many others, was given up by his owners. Not because he's bad, too big, or loud. For some reason, the two just weren't a perfect fit. Merlin's Refuge is a dedicated no-kill animal shelter, and like other shelters, they take in a wide variety of animals each and every day. The people who volunteer at Merlin's Refuge are dedicated to finding the perfect home for every animal, because no animal is unadoptable. For more information, visit merlinsrefuge.com.
This is the University of Nebraska's radio station, 90.3 KRNU, Lincoln.
For Husker Countdown, I'm Brent BonFleur. The bye week, a week with no game, no opponent. It's a week for players to rest and recuperate from the trials of the season, and in the case of the Husker defense, an extra week for some of the younger players to improve their skills. Perhaps no group benefited more from this extra week of practice than the youthful Husker linebacking core. This could prove especially valuable as explosive Illinois quarterback Nate Scheelhaus leads the Fighting Illini into Memorial Stadium. Two of the players that will be entrusted with the task of stopping Illinois' top playmaker are freshman and sophomore linebackers Josh Banderas and David Santos. And head coach Bo Pelini feels the two are up to the task.
I feel good about both guys. I think Santos has had a really good week. I think he's had a good couple weeks of practice, and I would say he's probably the leader there right now, but I think you'll probably see both guys. I think that Bando is getting better, but they're working hard at it every single day. And like I said, we have some depth, and every single day for all those guys is important.
Banderas is one of only two true freshmen to start on the Husker defense since senior nickelback Ciante Evans did it in 2010. During the loss to UCLA, Banderas racked up 11 tackles, as well as a sack. Santos has gotten off to an impressive start as well, leading the team in tackles against Wyoming in just his second career start. Both Santos and Banderas have the confidence of their teammates, especially running back Amir Abdullah, who compared them favorably to Illinois' own impressive linebackers.
I feel like the whole defense is pretty solid. Got a couple guys that stand out, like every team. But we got pretty good players on our side of the ball, and I expect us to dominate them.
Up to this point in the season, the Huskers have primarily faced opposing offenses with either a dominant rushing game or passing game, whereas the Illinois offense utilizes both effectively, as stated by Pelini.
Well, they're balanced. I think they have they can run it, they can throw it. They mix up their personnels a little bit. I think it's a well-coached offense. They do what they do, and they do it well. I think the quarterback has a good handle on what Coach Gubit's trying to do offensively, and I think they have a good level of execution.
With this extra week of practice and the backing of their teammates, Husker fans should feel confident in the ability of Santos and Banderas as they take the field hoping to shut down the Fighting Illini and chalk up another line in the Huskers' win column. For Husker Countdown, I'm Brent BonFleur.
Stick around. More pregame coverage is next on the University of Nebraska's radio station, 90.3 KRNU.
Do you have clothes that don't fit anymore? Are they still in good condition and still wearable? Then don't throw them out and donate them to Goodwill. Goodwill is a nonprofit organization that takes old clothes, appliances, and furniture. Goodwill takes them, cleans them up, and sells them for pennies on the dollar. Just log on to www.goodwill.org to find out the nearest donation center and donate today.
Now, Now, back out to Memorial Stadium for more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
Welcome back to Lincoln. Ryan Swanigan, Marc Zach, and Brent BonFleur. Gentlemen, we now move to the special teams. Quite a bit to talk about here, if you can believe that. As we start with Sam Foltz. Marc Zach had little work last game, so technically for Sam Foltz, he's had 2 Saturdays off, really. Only 1 punt in the last game against South Dakota State. Is that sort of quote-unquote 2-week break a factor in this game?
You know, I don't think the break is going to be a factor as much as the weather will be. You've got some gusting winds today, and so that's going to do some weird things with the football high up in the air. And so Sam Foltz is going to have to adjust to that, but, you know, he's been practicing in Nebraska for a while now, so he's used to wind. I think he will adjust fine. He's been one of the few bright spots this year on special teams, and he's struggled a little bit, but you can see progress from Sam Foltz, and I'm excited to see what he can do not only today but in the future for the Huskers.
Speaking of the weather, we now turn to Chief Meteorologist Marc Zach, who has our current conditions right now, who has our weather report here for us in Lincoln.
Current temperature in the capital city, 45 degrees. Going to get to a high of 53 with a west-southwest wind of 26 miles per hour. Partly cloudy right now, 64% humidity. That's Marc Zach here in the capital city.
Me being the other meteorologist gives you the details of the clouds and stuff, and you probably look outside if you're in Lincoln or Nebraska, or Lincoln and Omaha, and look out, and there's the intermission really, or the on and off of the sun as the clouds are here and there. It's really kind of a weird phase, but anyways, moving on, and we talk yes or no question, gentlemen, 2 of them. And I'll start with Kenny Bell breaks one out for a touchdown today on a kickoff return. Brent, yes or no?
I'm going to say no, and that's not a knock on Kenny Bell at all. It's just that doesn't happen very often. You know, you're lucky to get one of those a year. I mean, it certainly could be this game. We haven't seen a whole lot, but he's had some nice runs up to about midfield, so it's definitely possible. I think it is more of his, blockers doing their jobs more than anything he's going to be able to do by himself. But, it's possible.
I'm going to say no because half the kickoffs are going to go out of the back of the end zone, guaranteed.
That's
because of the wind.
With the wind, yes. Now, what about with Illinois kicking into the wind?
Well, he just gets less chances. So I still don't think he will because the Nebraska special teams setup is a lot of young players that, again, need to block the right gaps and haven't learned how to do that just yet.
Simple answer here with the next question. Pat Smith, Mauro Bondi. Marc?
Pat Smith for short, Mauro Bondi for long.
Brent?
I'm going to have to agree, and I think, Bondi played a lot in the last game, but they brought Smith in too for, extra points and that, so it's really just a toss-up, but I would have to agree with Marc.
Go ahead, Marc.
Well, I was going to lead into the Illinois special teams real quick here because I noticed something before anybody else got out here. The Illinois special teams came out early and started practicing, and Illinois' place kicker, Taylor Zaleski, was practicing drop-kicking field goals. I don't know if that means anything, but it might pop up in this game. And with this wind condition, I don't know. Illinois likes being tricky sometimes. And so don't be surprised if you see something weird on special teams with Illinois today.
So I guess talking about the Illinois special teams, what is there really to talk about as far as them? Mainly, we already talked, you mentioned about the drop kick field goals. What about the return side for the Illini?
I think the return game could be tricky as well. I just over the years you've seen this Illinois team run some crazy special teams plays, and I think this is the perfect game and the perfect atmosphere for them to try something today. And so I think Nebraska special teams really has to be on their game today and watch carefully what's going on. I don't know if they're going to run maybe a reverse return or a fake punt here or there or a drop kick field goal, or maybe nothing. But I'm just saying watch out for it because Illinois is known for it.
And when there's a team that comes in more, favored than the other, you kind of look for the other team to negate a bit of that advantage with some trick plays. You might see, you know, like a reverse pitch on a kickoff return or something. You know, I'm not going to say that's going to happen today, but, you know, they look for those little things, like Marc said, those little trick plays to kind of even the playing field a bit.
Finally, gentlemen, getting back to the Nebraska punt return game. Simple question, who do we see back there real quick?
I believe I saw Jamal Turner out there just a few minutes ago fielding some punts, so you might see him. He struggled a little bit earlier, and, you know, you could see a rotation, but to me it looks like Jamal Turner today.
I actually think Jordan Westerkamp's going to be the guy. He came in the last game against South Dakota State in that second half and was returning punts, and I thought did a very good job, and I think it's his job now to lose, and I think Jamal Turner's going to push him for it.
We'll take another break. When we come back, we will have the predictions that everybody is waiting for this matchup. Nebraska and Illinois just under 20 minutes away from kicking off here at Memorial Stadium. You're currently listening, though, to Husker Countdown here on 90.3 KRNU.
Stick around. More pregame coverage is next on the University of Nebraska's radio station, 90.3 KRNU.
Hey man, how'd you guys do today?
Dude, we won a barn burner. You should have been there.
I had to play broom ball. We won a close one too. It was great, man. I'm the king of the broom.
Easy there, killer. Someone's thinking the same thing right now.
Are you the next king of the broom, the basketball, or any of the other tools of intramural sports? If you love competition, we've got it. If it's variety you're looking for, we've got it. And if you want it, you need to hustle down to the campus rec right now and get signed up for whatever intramural sport you've got your eye on. I'll see you there.
Now, back out to Memorial Stadium for more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
Welcome back to Lincoln. The band has begun their pregame show, so we will get to the predictions for this game. Gentlemen, offensive, defensive players to watch. We'll start on the defensive side of the ball. Brent, you're up.
For Nebraska you're talking about?
Yes, sir. Or Illinois.
You can have your pick.
I'll go with Nebraska, and we talked a lot about the linebackers. I did the piece on David Santos and Josh Banderas, but I'm looking at another guy that's Nathan Gary. He's just a freshman, but he's had some moments. I think maybe he could be a difference maker in this game.
You took my guy. You took my guy.
I'm
okay.
so sorry.
I'll go with David Santos then. Santos lost his starting Mike linebacker job early in the season to Josh Banderas. Coach Pelini said that Banderas kind of peaked at his freshman level a little early, and so Santos has worked his tail off and got back into that Mike position starting spot. And so let's see if he's shown enough improvement from game 1 to game 5 now to keep that spot.
Guys, I'm going to jump to the Illinois side here, and Jonathan Brown, as I mentioned earlier, 44 tackles, total tackles on the season so far. Could be a real big factor on blitzes, getting in the backfield, disrupting Tommy Armstrong's rhythm, especially if he tries to pass the football. Should be an interesting guy to watch for the Fighting Illini. We move to the offensive side of the ball. Marc, Zach, you're up first. Who is your player to watch there?
I'm going to go with lineman Andrew Rodriguez. I think he's the guy that needs to step up on the offensive line. I think there's been enough blown assignments for Rodriguez that he's kind of earned a little bit of a reputation around the state, and so he needs to show that he used that bye week to his full advantage and really step up his game this week, because he's going to be protecting Tommy Armstrong instead of Taylor Martinez, and Tommy hasn't seen as much game experience as Taylor has, and so Tommy doesn't have the same instincts right now, and so Andrew Rodriguez really has to be on top of his game.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned instincts and maybe not the same relationship or, just kind of that, I don't know what the word is, rhythm they have together, the rapport. I'm going to give you a guy on the Illinois side again, that's Aaron Bailey. You probably won't see him he's not a guy who's out there every play, but when he is, you have to account for him or he can make you pay. I think he was just named Freshman of the Week for the last game. I'm not sure if that was last week or before, but he's definitely a little speedster you got to watch out for. They mix up some things with him. You never know where he's going to be, but he can make you pay.
Guys, I'm going to go with Amir Abdullah. I don't know why, but just for some reason, he has just mainly I think my reasoning for that is if this defense for Illinois is not as good as we're all saying they are not as good as they are, then, I think Amir Abdullah, if he can get past that D line, break it out on the outside, get past the linebackers, he'll break into the secondary, hopefully for Nebraska, getting about 10, 12 yards per carry, if possible, or at least some breakouts that lead to 10 to 12 yards.
And I like that a lot because I think with this wind being a factor, Nebraska's probably not going to pass as much, especially with the backup quarterback in today, and so a lot of it's going to be on Amir Abdullah's shoulders, and I think that might be a good pick. I think this may be the game where we see Amir Abdullah break out. He's been solid all year, but this might be his big game of the year.
We will take a break, step aside for the national anthem, and when we will come back, we will give the scores for this game in Nebraska, Illinois. It's coming up here on Husker Countdown on 90.3 KRNU.
Stay tuned. Husker Countdown continues next, only on 90.3 KRNU.
Most of us wake up to a nice roof over our heads. Most of us also go to school, work, and have families. Most of us also see the benefit of our hard work. Others, unfortunately, don't. The Lincoln Action Program is committed to helping low-income families in Saunders and Lancaster County. You can help, too. Contact the Lincoln Action Program at www.lincoln/action.org or call 471-4515 because helping others is cool.
In today's world of mass-produced movies with cookie-cutter characters and predictable plots, we could all use a change. The Mary Rietma Ross Media Arts Center can offer that change. It has 2 screens showing currently released American and foreign independent films and documentaries, all shown with the latest digital projection and sound technology. For information about the latest releases and showtimes, call the Mary Rietma Ross Media Arts Center at 472-5353 or visit them on the web at www.theross.org.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck for Dave 2037 so he can buy anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman. What are you getting Steve 2037?
Steve 2037 will be just fine.
Well, okay, but don't expect to borrow my anti-gravity boots.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
From the press box at Memorial Stadium, here's more of the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
Welcome back to Lincoln. We are coming upon 12:40 and counting before kickoff for Nebraska and Illinois. Still a lot of seats to be filled here at Memorial Stadium, and the fans are still filing in. Gentlemen, scores for this game. Brent, I start with you.
All right, well, I think this is going to be closer than maybe a lot of Nebraska fans think. I'd like to say that for Nebraska that they win handily, but with the way their defense has been playing, I think it's a bit closer. I think they get out to an early lead, and Illinois mounts a bit of a comeback, but unlike UCLA, I think the Huskers finish this one out. I'm going to say Huskers win 31-28.
Marc Zach?
That's a tight game. I don't know. I have seen the press conferences this week, and I've seen a lot of conviction in all the players that have been talking this week, and how much that they really worked in this bye week in practices. And so I don't know. I'm going to buy into that, and I'm going to trust these players right now. I think Nebraska's going to win this game pretty handily. I think they're going to put up a lot of numbers offensively. I think the defense is going to falter at times, but I think it's going to bend but not break tonight, or this afternoon, excuse me. So I'm going to say Nebraska 55, Illinois 24.
Ooh, wow, okay. There will be, hopefully, one play in this game that really is going to secure Nebraska's win. I think it's going to be close throughout, but that one play that Nebraska can pull off for maybe a 50-plus yard touchdown run or pass will help give them the edge and give them the win. I say 34-20. Nebraska getting it done. A reminder that you can always listen to 90.3 KRNU, whether you're in Lincoln, Omaha, or anywhere in the world. Just go to krnu.unl.edu and click on the KRNU logo in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. That way you can listen to all the Husker Sportscasts produced on 90.3 KRNU in Lincoln and on the web, again, at krnu.unl.edu. That is it for the Husker Countdown pregame show. For Brent BonFleur and Marc Zach, I am Ryan Swanigan. Signing off here, we will turn it over to John Kipper and Doug Lowry. They're coming up next after Husker Profile with Nebraska and Illinois from Memorial Stadium here in Lincoln on a gorgeous morning for football in the state of Nebraska. This has been the Husker Countdown pregame show on 90.3 KRNU.
This is your home for University of Nebraska Cornhusker football. 90.3 KRNU, Lincoln.